Hey, welcome back. We're doing Adani this week. Neither of us prepared an intro. You know about Adani. It's an India conglomerate.
You know. Why are they here if they already know?
Yeah, there's a title. Anyway.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so that's fun. Oh, by the way, happy birthday.
Happy slightly, well, it was a little bit ago, but thank you. I'm older now.
Yeah.
Life's old.
Yeah.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I still have a lot of junk food in my fridge, and I've definitely gained a few pounds, actually. Like, I'm up at least 3 pounds over the last week or two. So maybe it's just that I'm getting older, though.
Did you get the cake eaten?
The cake has not been fully eaten. In fact, as part of my birthday gift from my mom, she sent me aluminum foil and storage bags so that I could store the cake in the freezer so that I could eat it over a longer period of time. So
I got to see the picture. That is a very decorative cake. That's cool.
It was a very nice cake that's far too much for one person to possibly eat. So that's probably why I've gained a few pounds. I haven't eaten very much of it, to be fair. I've had a little tiny wedge out of the full.
Oh, so you had your birthday slice, and then everyone else gets.
I think I've had 2 slices so far.
Ooh, next year you're
scandalous.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know what? Also, happy birthday to this channel. It's been just over a year since we created it.
Has it really? Oh my God.
Yeah, that's really funny because we made it February 15th, 2022, and then we did nothing for 8 months. Yeah.
So it hasn't been the anniversary of actually posting a video because you were about to I was like, it has not.
There's no way.
So,
yeah.
Huh? Okay. Time still doesn't fly that quickly. Thank goodness. I'm not there yet.
I opened up and it said, "Hey, your birthday, happy channel," and I, what are you saying to me? And no, yeah, we started it and then we did nothing. We very slowly prepared for 8 months and then we posted the first video. So
I'm bad at things because, I'm always making videos and streaming and stuff. And so to add something into the mix is always, it's my fault. I'm bad.
Oh, Michael Jackson.
Anyway, shall we talk about today's topic? Adani Enterprises, the Adani Group.
Yes.
Wait, did you actually make an intro?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
One of India's largest conglomerates. They do anything and everything you can think of. They have a lot of investments into infrastructure and data and food and military. They do a whole bunch of stuff.
And it's also it's a lot of infrastructure related ventures. It's not in the US, a lot of the big companies that are, leading the NASDAQ and NYSE, there are a lot of tech companies, obviously. Yeah. Whereas this is a lot more industrial manufacturing and
shipping.
Which is interesting because the multiples that you see, we'll get to this, but the multiples that you see in these companies are very much not what you expect to see in something that is infrastructure and energy.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that because, that's part of the short report and stuff that we'll get into down the video. But I feel like we should establish some context for Adani first, which is interesting because I feel like the first I actually heard the name was probably only in the last year, in articles from Forbes and whatnot saying here is this person, Gautam Adani, who is now the third richest person in the world, out of nowhere, this absolutely massive building of wealth.
2021, it went. I still don't know if I'm married to you or not, so.
That looks correct. It wasn't a decline. It was an increase. So good job there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, he surpassed Jeff Bezos actually as the world's third richest man for a time. Mm-hmm. At the moment, not anymore. He's now the 7th richest man.
Well, no. Now he he down
Has he gone-
much
he's
more
go-
now. Oh, he's down
much
much more
more?
now. Yeah. I mean, because this is obviously very, very much a developing story.
It's
and
ongoing, I suppose.
covering
Yeah.
this, but yes, he's down into the 20s now. So
Pray for Adani. I hope he's doing okay. I hope he
well,
finds a place
you
to
never
stay
know how
tonight.
much leverage you never know how much leverage somebody has. It can blow up even at those extremely high levels, and that is also part of the short report accusations, is that there is some leverage involved in family members and close related parties with the companies. But that said, just some background on Adani. I guess we have the website up to just go through some, I guess, the things that they do, which is many things.
Everything, yeah. They go. So when I first went onto this website, I said, "Oh wow, they go through a lot of stuff: renewable power generation, solar manufacturing, they power transmission. So they make the stuff that makes the power, and then they create the power, and then they move the power, and then distribution." And I'm like, wow. And then I look up, and that's just the first tab of their kind of business models. And then in the next one, there's transportation and logistics, agri-logistics, ports and terminals, industrial land.
Also, just the website doesn't seem to load too good. So
one of their businesses is web design. They don't have any of that yet. They'll be getting that soon with how fast they're expanding. But yeah, they don't have any web designers, but they do have drone manufacturers for defense and aerospace. That's related to what we'll get into in a bit. They are Adani is very close to the Indian government and helps them. Adani has admitted that he likes to align with government interests. We'll get to that. But yeah, so he helps out with the defense capabilities, airports, water, roads, data centers, fruits.
Which I like. A data center is... They should make it load the website better.
Yeah, maybe they should. I wonder if this is hosted on one of their data centers, or if they exported this or outsourced this for.
They could use some American AWS site for it, maybe.
I wonder if they have some competition with Amazon. Like, you suck.
I don't know.
Something. I don't know how that works up there.
I do like how just a listing though is fruits.
Yeah, that's kind of funny to include in the same tab as defense and aerospace. Top left, drone. Bottom right, nectarine.
Hey, you know what? Fruits are tasty, and I appreciate the fact that they're helping to bring fruits to people because they're good to eat. I love fruit.
That's official. That's the marginal advice of the day.
Eat fruit.
I love fruit.
Good.
And then, hey, if you don't want to eat fruit, in the next tab over, under others, you can eat some oils and food, edible oils. They got real estate because if you're rich, you can't be a super wealthy person without owning a small town's worth of people's houses. Financial services, they're giving that to themselves, as we'll talk about later. And then housing, finance. So they are across the board. They have expanded, especially in recent years. They've been doing a lot of expansion, which is partly why they're under fire now, because they took out a lot of leverage, a lot of bank loans to fund this expansion into, it's not listed here yet because they're still starting it up, but sectors like 5G, they're going into that. But because all of this fast growth, if we open up their Adani Enterprises stock, you'll see from 2021 onwards, it grew a lot faster than all of the prior years. Even if you go to Max as well, obviously you're going to stare right at the sharp drop at the end. But we'll get to that. Yeah. And getting this massive growth, they've taken out billions in bank loans and other collateral, or they've put up their stock as collateral. And now that it's fallen, that's caused some problems. But yeah, they've expanded very fast, and that has caused them to be under scrutiny lately, including by the Hindenburg, which is a short-selling hedge fund. Do we want to go into that yet, you think?
I mean, I think just like a little more just background about Gautam Adani and
The man. Good
well,
idea.
just the fact that he and the current Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, they are from the same territory in India, Gujarat, and so there is a lengthy history there of there was civil unrest back in like the early 2000s in that area, and Modi came under fire from his party for that taking place. Adani was one of the people in the business community in that territory that kind of said, no, we support Modi and what he's doing. Yeah. And then when Modi kind of regained footing and then ran for national office, it was like,
Adani, hey, thank you very much. I'm going to give you an airport.
But so it was like there was a little, just a little anecdotal thing, which was that when Modi was elected, he
went on
flew in on Adani's jet.
His jet.
Yeah.
So Adani and Modi are very much buddies. Whether or not you subscribe to the corruption allegations, they are admittedly very close because of their
You
past.
might not even say alleged corruption or not, being in the good graces, being friends with the prime minister of the country in which you do business can't hurt.
Right.
No matter what.
And Adani himself has said that, I mentioned this a little, probably 3 minutes ago or something. Adani says he likes to align with government interests, and he does that to get an advantage. He says that it does give him an advantage. However, he always stays within the law, which is, good, but that's kind of, is that not what is frowned upon? Even if it's legal, doing a lot of good stuff.
It's how the world works.
It
basically,
is.
how would you expect
guess
anything else?
It's either corruption or corruption, but that's just business.
Yeah.
We do it here. We've seen a lot in the U.S. of that happening.
But when Modi was elected as prime minister, Adani Enterprises shares they jumped. I think it was 23%.
Did they? I didn't see that.
Yeah, I mean, this was back in 2014. This is like 2014, I think. So the chart, because of how much the stock has just rocketed since, it's like a blip in the chart. But yes, their alignment has obviously, like, it's the public sees it if the share price is jumping upon the election of a particular person to their office. If they're like, okay, there's definitely, they get along with each other. This is going to help. Therefore, we're going to buy, shares are going to be up. So clearly, this is a relationship that people see and think is beneficial in public markets. In India.
Yeah, we have that famous picture of Adani's plane and Modi. It was when he got elected. There's Modi going, "Hey, hello, I'm elected. What's up? You're great. I love you. I'm getting on this Adani plane right now. The Adani name is right there." As I'm saying this, I'm pulling it up because I didn't earlier. Oh, please tell me that's not 0 pixels long.
What a
All right, let me find. I'm gonna find a bigger one.
This is the time at which the better resolution photo will be shown. That isn't 1 pixel. You can still see. You see a human, and then you see Adani.
Yeah.
So, that is interesting though, because it would be strange to see a photo of Joe Biden giving a peace sign, and then it says Apple,
Amazon.
On the plane.
Yeah. That is kind of funny. This one looks a little upscaled, but you know what? It's bigger. I failed to hit the enter button 5 times there.
It's okay. It looks like AI did some upscaling here of this.
Yeah. Well, 20 2015 was a more primitive time for cameras and camera phones. So
yeah, my videos from 2015 were in like basically zero resolution.
Yeah,
crazy.
I didn't even have videos from 2015.
I can't believe that YouTube existed in 2015 and videos were going up crazy.
I don't know if they were.
We
actually
had the technology. What was I doing? I'm just misremembering my past.
Drawing. There was no cameras.
I used to draw my life videos. That's all.
Oh my God! Wow.
Okay, so anyway,
they were very close.
Political connections here.
Political connections. Everyone has acknowledged it, but and the fact that the stock rose so sharply means that people knew what was going to happen, and it did. Gaudani and his businesses.
Did you just combine his first and last name together into one word?
Yeah.
You just did Gaudani?
Honestly, I like it better.
Okay.
It's like saying what do we say for Sam Bankman-Fried? SB Fried or
Sam Bankrupt?
Scam, bankrupt, fraud, whatever that was.
It doesn't really combine into one word, though.
I thought we combined a name recently, didn't we?
I don't recall if we did.
Well, Gaudani was
to be clear, though. This is all. The Hindenburg stuff is all alleged. That we are not making any claims. That there are any, as opposed to FTX where he's actually on trial. There's a difference here in the situation.
SBF and all that, and we're referencing past videos. That's not in relation to what we're talking about now. And so, yes, it is all alleged, and Adani, the conglomerate, responded with a very lengthy paper that we'll get into later that didn't answer a lot of questions, but
we're getting ahead of ourselves.
We are getting ahead of ourselves.
Okay, so I mean, the Indian markets have been kind of on a bit of a rocket ship in recent few years, seen as like this is a very, very good emerging market to invest in, and Adani has kind of been like the flagship of that. And so as the Indian markets have seen growth in the last few years, you've had just this meteoric rise of the Adani companies, which we can see in the charts of all of there's 7 main different listed Adani companies, and most all of them have, ignoring the last couple of weeks, just absolutely meteoric rises in the last couple of years. And as such, Hindenburg, the short-selling hedge fund, came out with a report a couple of weeks ago alleging that there is some foul play going on with the Adani companies, and they detailed it out in a pretty lengthy report, which I think we should go through some of the highlights as to what they are alleging is going on. The one thing that I always think is worth mentioning, though, is in a situation where you have a short-selling report, obviously that entity is financially interested in seeing that share value fall. So there is a conflict of interest on both sides, right? Hindenburg wants their report to see the share price in their target company fall, and then the company that is being attacked, they're going to want to stay solvent. They're going to not want their share price to fall. And so whatever response they give is going to be in the interest of making the share value either at least maintain or rise. So you have these two parties with conflicted interest going at each other. So you have to always take everything with a bit of a grain of salt in these cases. And also just a bit of background on Hindenburg. They're probably most known for issuing the short report on Nikola. Yeah. And showing that, the truck was coasting down the hill in their promotional video.
That's so ridiculous.
So obviously that was a successful short report, and their allegations were accurate. And as such, Nikola is very much down, and Trevor Milton, is he on trial right now, or was he convicted?
I haven't seen any news about him recently, so I'd assume he's still on trial. Nope, he was convicted in October. 1 count of securities fraud and 2 counts of wire fraud.
I can't remember if he was on trial or convicted, but either way, he's in some hot water. And anyway, so that's sort of their background, their biggest hit. And then in this case, now they've taken a swing at Adani, and they allege it's the biggest corporate fraud in history. Essentially, which is a pretty lofty allegation to make.
Pretty big claim, because after they got their fame from the Nikola report, now they are kind of leveraging this rapport as being the big investigators, the one to uncover the truth, and they've set their sights on Adani Group, and it would make sense for them to be as honest as possible, because if they are wrong about this, that kind of kills their credibility for all future endeavors, because a big part of this, at least initially, is them being such a well-known institution for, recently, for exposing this corruption or any type of fraud in these companies. It actually creates a market response as soon as they drop the report. Even before any of the investigations or anything else comes out, their word creates a change in the market. So if they put in their shorts beforehand, they put it out, there'll be an instant drop. Now, if they suddenly, if it's found that, Adani is actually fine, all of this was legal, nothing was wrong, then next time the Hindenburg puts out something, there probably won't be nearly as much of a response to that. And then they lose money in the long term. So it's in their best interest.
That said, they are probably pretty good at planning their exits. I would be very surprised if they're still holding a big position now that many of these shares are down 50% in price. At that point, you're probably like, okay, this is done well, and
we did it, but
we're out.
Yeah, just in the future, I guess whenever their next biggest corporate fraud in history is, whatever they do, I'm sure they would want the same initial market movement just from their word alone, so they can get out at the same time.
It is also, it's a very interesting business model, because when you think about what has to go into a company's growth in order to merit share price increase, like there are very few things that anyone, even a CEO or insider, could say that would immediately cause 50% growth in share price outside of an acquisition happening or something like that.
Or 100% growth, that would be the equivalent.
Yeah. Sorry, doubling. And so if you had any entity out there, and this obviously, like, it's basically what you have with analysts saying, I have a price target of, double the current share price, because they envision all of these following things are going to happen, and they're very optimistic about the stock. That doesn't make the stock rise 100%. Yeah. On the other hand, when it comes to
big thing.
When it comes to a whistleblowing, essentially, of there are many things wrong, we think this is a house of cards, it immediately causes an implosion. So it's, if they are right on their reporting and they have credibility to it, it is immediately profitable. There is no waiting involved at all. And you have to imagine, like, there are every company out there is trying to make themselves look as good as possible to anyone looking to invest. And you have to know that there have got to be so many companies out there that underneath the surface, there's a bunch of stuff that's going wrong. Like entropy exists. Things are, as time goes by, as things get bigger and bigger for any company, there's going to be more and more that's just trying to get patched up layer by layer under the hood. And so like it's if you can do it right, it is a very, very lucrative business model. Because you just know that there's got to be so many companies that would be eligible for getting whistleblown for something. So that said, I mean, they just have to try to be accurate to maintain their credibility in the long term, because that's what matters for the business plan being executed.
Right. And honestly, I mean, of the hedge funds, of all of them, one that, especially short sellers, one that short sells based off of what is hopefully for them actual fraud and illegal goings on, kind of the hedge funds, kind of a noble hedge fund. Like, they're okay. Like, I'll let them
no, you're gonna bring up some controversy there, because there are a lot of people who don't like short selling.
I don't like short selling either.
No, not don't like it in terms of think it's too risky and wouldn't do it themselves. Like, are emotionally opposed, like dislike the practice.
Well, I also, a lot of the short sellers that exist, they do it, and then they purposefully do, even if the company's not doing anything fraudulent or illegal, they short sell, and then they just kind of try and help bring down this company just so they can profit and nothing else. Whereas with this one, with Hindenburg, at least it's a whistleblower that's, I imagine, so if they weren't profiting at all, would you still want a whistleblower to come out and say these things like, hey, these companies are rolling a truck down a hill or something, or this.
Oh, sure, of course.
Money.
And so I think short selling as a practice is important, because it does aid with price discovery in stocks, because without it, stocks would be just more inclined, regardless of any fundamentals, to just go up indefinitely. Because if you didn't have if you had people who are owners of the shares who they're good just holding it, they're not thinking about it, it's passive, then those people aren't going to feel inclined to sell. And again, it's just going to be, the price will have a tendency to gravitate upwards. And with the ability to short sell, it does mean that for companies that genuinely have issues under the hood, you have more of an ability to make the share price reflect what is actually going on. So anyway, that said, we dwelled a little bit on Hindenburg. Now I guess we might as well get into the specifics of their report and what they allege has happened with Adani. And there's just some, I mean, I want to start with like the basic bullet point. I think they have a couple bullet points that are kind of iffy in terms of how important they are. Like, their first bullet point is simply like, the companies are overvalued. And what? I mean, look, like, I look at the multiples and the growth that there's a chart. It lists all the different publicly listed Adani companies, and Adani Enterprises 3-year stock gain 1,400%, Adani Transmission 3-year gain 730%, Total Gas 2,100%, Green Energy 900%, Adani Power 330%, Ports 100%. Wilmar, which was listed in the last year, 150%. So crazy massive growth. And the multiples on these, the PE ratios, 815 for green energy, 29 for power, 831 for total gas, 312 for transmission, 508 for enterprises, 90 for Wilmar, 35 for ports. And then they give the industry average, which respectively 24, 24, 20, 24, 12, 30, and then ports is 2. Shipping companies oftentimes have exceedingly low multiples. Their price sales are gigantic. Yeah. So you look at this, and then you look at other companies that are in these similar industries listed on the NYSE, and you're like,
what is going on.
800 earnings on a gas company. What?
Yeah, tech companies are notorious for having high PE ratios, and they don't get nearly close to this.
Yeah, so the multiples are wild, which implies that people are pricing in enormous growth that is going to continue in coming years. But like, it's not like these numbers are. These are listed numbers. It's not something where Hindenburg has discovered that actually, even though they claim that their earnings are this and this is their market cap, actually they've been inflating their earnings and now this is their actual PE. These are numbers that are available to anyone who is investing in the companies, and people are investing knowing that this is what the company looks like. Therefore, I think this is a weak argument.
Yeah, I don't know if they shouldn't really have included this one because, it's pretty much just like, hey, you saw this, right? Are you not looking at this? Because we can both see it, and that's not good, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
So you could look at, there are so many companies that exist in American markets that almost all stocks, when you look at them, look expensive. Because if they looked cheap, then people would be like, this looks cheap, I'm going to buy it, and the share price would go up. So that is why most stocks that you look at, you're like, is it a good, like, because any other...
That's the sweet spot.
Yeah, and then you look at it 10 years later and you're like, God dang it, why didn't I...
I could have been $2 million richer. Right?
That's me. That is me with NVIDIA specifically.
Oh, really?
Like, I've had NVIDIA in my portfolio for a long time, but like... I started using their GPUs probably 12 years ago, something like that, and I was like, this is a good product. There weren't too many other than AMD. There are not really many other competitors there, and so if I had just looked at the products that I used on a very regular basis 10 years ago and been like, yeah, these would be good to put everything into, like NVIDIA would be probably the biggest gainer of all of those. But yeah, you're at the time, I'm sure I'd have been like, but that seems like what are they, $10 billion market cap? That seems pretty high. I don't know. Would I really want to? And then, you look at them now, you're like, what the heck? Anyway, so stocks always seem expensive, even though hindsight is 2020. So that's their first argument. Little wishy-washy, I think, because it's already publicly available information.
Yeah, but they do have some better ones going down the line. They probably should have listed that one not first. Maybe put it down some.
It's kind of an interesting one. The next one, though, is a more interesting, compelling argument, which is that just in terms of the data that is publicly available, the percent of shares that are held by related parties is exceedingly high in all of the companies, and this is just the publicly listed numbers. So in India, you're allowed to have a maximum of 75% of the float owned by related parties, insiders, family members. And in 4 of the companies, it's in Adani Power, it's 74.97%.
Yep.
Which is
they're really maxing it out.
Adani Total Gas, 74.8%. Adani Transmission, 74.19%. This is what is publicly disclosed. So it means that what affects the share price in public markets is the trading of only 25% of the float. And I saw a video on YouTube that gave a good example just as to why there are regulations about this. And it's because I could say make a company that has 1 trillion shares, and then I could go. Oh,
you saw the guy who was on the street and convinced someone. Yeah.
Yeah, you go make a company that has 1 trillion shares, convince someone to buy one for $10, and all of a sudden you have
you are the richest person on earth on paper.
Yeah, I got it. Well, I'm worth $10 trillion. One person bought my share for $10 in my 10 trillion share company.
My mom bought my share for $100.
Now 100 trillionaire.
Yeah.
So you got to have good chunk of shares that are being traded by the public, non-interested related entities, and they're butting right up against those restrictions. And obviously the shares that are held by insiders are not going to trade as freely, and they can communicate with each other and say, like, we're holding these, right? We're not going to sell our shares in order to keep the price where it needs to be.
And that was part of the, first of all, it's not a family company. It's a publicly traded, so
it's not billed that way.
Right. It's not supposed to be,
yes,
but it pretty much is. That was one of the big issues, compounded by the fact that there were offshore companies owned by, on paper, they said, not related entities, just happened to be, big investment firms that wasn't related to Adani in any way, but they found that there were ties to Adani. So not only do you have this 75% family-owned company, essentially, you have an additional, I don't know exactly what percentage, but an additional hundreds of millions or billions.
I'm trying to scroll down to where specifically it's at.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little long. Bold of them put this all on one web page, by the way.
So it alleges, and there's essentially two kinds of foreign entities at play here. There are foreign investment funds that the ownership is murky. Their ownership is murky for both, but there's like investment funds that publicly they list their holdings, and their holdings are like 99% Adani in certain cases for certain funds.
And they never sell them.
Yeah. And then there are other entities that aren't, they're more for passing through of money. They're not fun. There are stock parking entities. And then there are also just shell companies that are used to move money around. So you have these two different uses of these companies. But for the stock parking, they said that for Adani Transmission, which already has 74%, these all have 74% ownership of insiders publicly listed. There's suspected another 10% of the float is owned by these other stock parking entities. Adani Enterprises was 3%, Adani Power 6%, Adani Total Gas another 4.3%, which all, especially in Adani Transmission, puts them well over the rule of needing to have no more than 75% insider ownership of the float. Right. And then they also list some strange funds that one AMPS or APMS investment fund, and they're all based out of, they're in Mauritius. And the ownership is very murky, but this one has 99.4% of this fund's assets are in Adani companies.
I mean, you got to diversify.
Yeah,
the
pretty well diversified. 2.3 billion in this fund. Cresta Fund, 674 million with 90% ownership in Adani. LTS Investment Fund, 1.5 billion, 97.9 in Adani. Elara India, 3 billion with 99% in Adani. And Opal Investments, 613 million, 100% in Adani. One of these, though, the Elara.
Interesting fact. Elara, the director, is Lord Joe Johnson, right? Is that what you were going to say?
No, I was just going to say that there was for Elara, there was essentially like a whistleblower who spoke with Hindenburg, and the former trader said it is obvious that Adani controls the shares and that the structure of the fund is intentionally designed to conceal their beneficial ownership. That was what a former employee trader told Hindenburg for specifically Elara.
Interesting. And I believe for Elara, the director was Lord Joe Johnson, the brother of Boris Johnson, the UK. Yeah. And so a little weird.
Interesting. Okay.
A little weird. Upper class, intricate, woven there, yeah. Mm-hmm. He did. Johnson. He did resign. shortly after the report was released, coincidentally, he said he was he needed coincidentally because he realized he needed greater experience in financial regulation for that role. So he left a couple weeks ago. Whoops, bye-bye. So
I wasn't feeling like, I was doing a great job. Nothing to do with this other thing.
I just suddenly realized this fund deserves better than me.
Yeah. And then so that's the stock parking, the alleged stock parking entities. But then there's a whole network of offshore entities that are supposedly under the control of Adani's older brother, that have been used to write off losses in the way of transferring assets, and then rather than one of the Adani companies having to write down that and have it affect earnings and make it look less desirable, they can transfer it over to one of these other companies, and then that company can essentially write down that asset that was transferred over. And they also there's a little like flow chart that they put together showing that the known Adani trusts can pass funds to the more or less anonymous entities, and then as needed it can be re-injected into companies, and in order to make them look more appealing and make their bolster their balance sheets in order to then secure loans as needed, so that it doesn't look as risky for the lenders.
So now that this has come out, all of these bank loans and leverage that Adani has taken out, people are realizing, wait a minute, this is all of your collateral is also just, it's not real. It's kind of just, it's yours. Your collateral is your own. And so not only that, but since this came out and the stock has been going down, it's like a double whammy. And banks in India, they're saying, hey, you gotta give us a little something here to make sure you're not gonna default on this. What bank was it? Was it Credit Suisse?
Oh yeah, Credit Suisse said we're just not accepting Adani shares as collateral for loans going on into the future. But I don't know that has anything to do with like if they're issuing current margin calls or not. But in general, it's just a very not good practice to issue your own shares as collateral for loans for that same company.
You know what? This suddenly does sound familiar to FTX.
Yes, yeah, with their FTT token. And
a little bit.
Yeah, so it's like if you're going to, take out a loan for something, a margin loan, usually you want it to be an unrelated stock entity. Yeah. Like, I guess if you want to equate it to something else in the public sphere at the moment, it's like Elon Musk. I don't recall how much of a margin loan he actually ended up taking out, but it was like, he was going to take a margin loan on his Tesla shares, but that's for Twitter, which is a separate entity. So you hope that they remain unrelated enough that you're not as likely to get margin called if Twitter performs badly, because Tesla should be kind of an unrelated thing. But taking out collateral on the same thing that you're getting the loan for is it's a little bit of an iffy thing to do. And so a lot of the Adani insiders and the family members have, I'm trying to find where it's listed on the short report, but they have pledged many of their shares. Oh, here it is. They have pledged many of their shares as collateral for loans, to where if they are margin called, it will cause significant forced selling, which, now that the stock is down 50% in many cases, may have been part of that decline in value. Is some forced selling going on there?
Yeah, because they were allegedly margin called, Adani, but only for half. The bank wanted, I'm forgetting the name of the bank, that's what I was trying to remember, but the bank wanted half in cash, and the rest can remain collateral, which makes sense because their collateral went down 50%. But it was a $1.1 billion loan, and Adani decided to pay back all of it, the entire loan, because a lot of the people, they're being criticized for being too leveraged on all fronts. And so they paid back the entire loan, even though they didn't have to. It didn't mature until next year. And they didn't mention that they were margin called. They just mentioned, hey, look, we paid back the whole thing. We didn't need to do that. We did just to let you know we're deleveraging. But it seems that they were margin called. But hey, they paid off, margin called or not, they paid off the whole thing. So they are starting to deleverage, which, I mean, it's good that they're doing that. But it's kind of funny because now that this has all happened and they've been taking so many loans for the last several years and building so rapidly and expanding into so many different areas, now they can give back a lot of their loans and said, oh, okay, yeah, here, we got this entire port that we built from scratch right next to our solar manufacturing facility. I don't know if you saw this, but that's kind of going currently. That's up and running. Thank you for the loan. We appreciate that, by the way. So now, even if they do have to pay a lot in reparations, is the wrong word, is it?
Yeah, that's the wrong word.
Yeah. Even if they have to pay a lot back, their investment, their debt-driven growth model kind of worked. It's similar, almost like
It did, but now in order to justify all the multiples that people are investing in them at, they need to be able to keep that going. So it's like, it's weird because suddenly being like, okay, we can be stable on our own, it's not going to be as appealing to invest at them in such high multiples, and they're going to have to contract
because
it's
a lot of that
harder
investment was
without that leverage.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a bit of a double-edged sword, and something at the same time that the short report was released, and I have to assume that the timing was done on purpose by Hindenburg.
Absolutely. That was, I can't believe we didn't mention that earlier.
The secondary share offering that was going on.
The report was released that morning that he was doing the secondary share offering.
So, yeah, they had secured a sizable amount of interest in a secondary share offering that was like, it's just right underneath what the public share price is. And of course, this gets released. The share prices start to plummet.
Goes down. And so the first day, the people that already bought in due to past agreements, they bought it, $750 million worth of shares were bought automatically. But then after that, when it was the retail offering, the share offering is now more than the share price because of the report drove down the share. So nobody bought anything. The 1% of the available shares were bought.
But I believe they were able, in the end, they were able to actually get it fully subscribed.
Yes.
Which is like, who?
Yeah.
Anyway, they were able to get it fully subscribed. But after that, it was like, no. It would be morally wrong for us to actually go through with this at a much higher price than the shares are now trading at. So it was canceled. And
that kind of makes sense for if you think about Adani's the man, Adani's method to growing his business ever since the beginning, when he kind of stood up for Modi when no one else was doing that. That kind of hurt his reputation at the time, but in the long run, it got him in good standing with government entities. He helped them out. They helped him out. I recall one, for example, later on, there were some airports up for sale, And before, it was a law that only companies involved in the aerospace space could bid on it. But the rules were changed shortly before that happened so that any large corporation could now buy it.
Just the thing that would make me really comfortable with flying.
Oh yeah. And so Gautam Adani comes in, and suddenly overnight he is now one of the biggest airport owners in the country, because he's suddenly able to buy this when he wouldn't have been able to before. And so overnight, boom, Adani, the airport guy, that's him now. And so that was kind of a long-term play for him. His initial, I mean, not just that, he does a lot with the government, but the point is things like that result from him, Gautam Adani, kind of being nice to the right people in the past. So now it would kind of make sense that he would do the same thing, canceling this share offering, even though it was completed, because if he didn't cancel it, those investors would immediately see a loss when they bought the shares, because the share price has fallen so much, but the offering price did not. And so to maybe get a bit more of a drop now in exchange for long-term good standing with those investors, institutional investors, he canceled the offering, and likely that will help him in the future, because he is a very good planner and businessman. Adani.
It's just fascinating. Like, I can understand for the people who are already committed, canceling it to help them, but also, why were people? Who was willing to fund this after the share price has already declined? They're like, you know what? Sure, I'll just give you more money than I just instantly eat a loss on this. It's such a very bizarre outlook, but I don't know. Maybe that whoever that was hoping that they're going to gain favor from him for the future. Who knows? And that favor was worth the immediate loss as it stands.
Yeah, there were two main groups of investors, I believe, who put it through, who completed it. The first was, on the third day, the International Holding Company of Abu Dhabi, government entity. And they pledged to buy 400 million in shares as a show of good faith. And this helped the sentiment towards the company. Because like, well, if the government's willing to buy it at a slight loss, it must be predicting it's going to go up anyway. Yeah. And so that was a very good show of faith. And then on the fourth day, it is alleged that the top 5 buyers of the stock that completed the offering towards the end of the day was the family offices of the top richest business owners in India. Perhaps to
protect our own.
Exactly. Against this Wall Street, who's this New York guy trying to bring us down? An India company being brought down by Wall Street? Absolutely not. And so they bought in to kind of help. But Adani said, thank you, but take your money back. So,
and I guess now it would be interesting to show. I'm gonna set to 1 month charts on all of the different publicly listed Adani companies now. Adani Enterprises 50% down on the 1 month. Adani Total Gas 75% down. Adani Transmission 66% down. Green Energy nearly 70% down. Adani Power 43%. Adani Power. I had Adani Power up twice. Cool.
Cool.
Adani Wilmar 20%, and I believe that is that was only 6. I somehow doubled up on Adani Power, and I missed one other chart. But needless to say, they're down quite a lot in the past month, and the end of the Hindenburg report, basically, it starts off with a bunch of bullet points of issues to be aware of that they then go into further detail. And then they end the report at the very bottom with a bunch of specific questions that they pose to the Adani companies.
Almost 90, wasn't it?
Let's see the exact number. It's quite a lot. It is 88 questions.
That sounds like a game.
It does. And so the Adani Group did come back with I believe it was a 413-page response to this.
It's like the equivalent. It's like that thing where someone messages like one sentence insult, and then you see like the response of. Just multiple page, multiple paragraph, just mostly nothing as a response. Like, are you're lying. You
to
get
be fair,
nothing.
this is a very long report that was done by Hindenburg, and 88 questions is a lot of questions. But it was
put out pretty fast.
It was put out very quickly. The response was it had a lot of not necessarily directly responding to the issues that were brought up. There was a lot of saying that what this is like an attack on Indian markets and the growth that the Indian markets have seen in recent years, and that it was this is unfair to the country as a whole versus it being targeted to just specifically the Adani Group. I was trying to deflect it into something else that really isn't, because it is entirely focused on just the Adani Group. So it was an effort to deflect. That said, I mean, it's like the interesting thing is that will this have any long-term implications in terms of regulatory intervention from SEBI, which is India's SEC equivalent? Will this actually lead to investigations? Because ultimately, like if the public shares sell off and the price goes down, but there is no intervention from any government entities, they will be able to just continue doing what they're doing, and eventually the share price will probably rise back up once the general public says, oh, okay, so nothing's coming of this.
But that does put a bit of a negative spin on the kind of investment space there as well. So it really behooves them to act appropriately against this, should there be any wrongdoing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I mean, it's not surprising though that I respond. No, they're not going to respond and say, "Yeah, you know what? We did illegal."
You got us. You sneaky.
We would have gotten away with it too if you weren't for your meddling hedge funds.
Meddling hedge funds.
So it's not surprising. And so it's almost like the questions, I'm sure when they were put together by Hindenburg, it's like they know it's rhetorical in the sense that they're not going to see direct answers to these.
Mm-hmm. Although that sounds pretty much the same for any company you accuse of something.
Of course. It's not this instance in particular. It's any instance. If someone came out with accused Apple and Apple's leadership of doing these similar things, you're not going to get a letter from Tim Cook
saying, guys,
you know what,
I
you
guess
got
we're
us.
done. The apple fell off the tree and we're done.
Yep. So it's ultimately it will come down to whether or not there's investigation by regulators and any action taken if they do find that these accusations are true. But in the meantime, clearly Hindenburg has done very well.
Yes.
Off of their investment here. I would have to imagine they have probably sold the grand majority of it at this point. So it also begs the question, though, like psychologically, for the people who are working at Hindenburg, I wonder, do they care to see, like, are they hoping morally that if there is wrongdoing, that it actually is fixed? Or are they just like, heck yeah, it worked. We got our bag. Let's figure out the next company. I'm very curious
Yeah.
just the perspective of it.
That would be a good guest for the podcast. Getting someone from the Hindenburg.
You're never they're never gonna be like, oh, we don't care, right? That's never. You're never gonna get a straight answer for any of this, because anyone who works for a company like Hindenburg is gonna be like, no, we care.
Ex-worker.
And then you have to wonder, like, are they disgruntled? Are they just trying to paint them in a bad light? Yeah. You never know. You never actually know for sure. You just have to, like, combine all these different viewpoints to the best of your ability in order to come up with what you think to be accurate. But at the end of the day, you never know what sort of biases somebody has. To make them say what they're saying. So, anyway, clearly very successful, and it will be interesting to. It is as most of the current events situations we've done here on the podcast. Like, it is ongoing. More will come in time, I'm sure, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I don't see Adani falling into obscurity, but I hope some action is taken. And if there is, that could be maybe a positive outlook for the future. Because a lot of these, something bad happens and people are like, oh, no. And then nothing happens. And so as with all of them, it would be nice to see some more actual concrete investigations and information come out. And we'll see in the coming months or years, probably.
I mean, clearly they do execute on their businesses. Like, it would be quite clear to see if, they are not, they say they are a power company, but people are without power all over the place who are supposed to be getting provided by them.
They supply a fifth of the electricity transmission in India.
Yeah, so like clearly their businesses work. They're able to execute on things. And so I don't think that the Adani Group and its companies they're not suddenly going to go bankrupt, likely, because it's like there's infrastructure that is used by the public. So I guess in the event of a bankruptcy, maybe you see things nationalized or something like that. But it's significant enough that it's probably not going to go anywhere. It just, maybe the values reduced to more traditional multiples, or just shoots right back up. You never know.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, because it's definitely performing, but on the financial side, that's where all the investigations are taking place. You can't deny that they're doing some good stuff for the country. So let's hope that they don't get too fraudulent up in there in the future. It's funny because I bet you, like, most massive companies out there in the world, they've done some shady stuff here and there. It's just like that's the nature of the game. You can't get to $1 trillion without
it's just musical chairs of like hoping, okay, we're not going to be the next one whose bodies are like discovered or something like that.
Underneath the chair. That's how you play musical chairs.
I'm sure that it's like I wonder if there's in the Hindenburg office they just have a dartboard with like all the major companies.
All right, which tickers. One are we doing next?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting. I wonder how they choose, because every company's got to have something. How do you figure out which one to go after? I guess it's got to be the one that's easiest when compared to how big of a movement you could possibly get out of it.
I'm sure you look at like what companies have seen just the most meteoric rises in recent years, and you're like, this is weird, and then you're like, all right, let's dig into this. I don't know though. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know either. If we were to know, we would probably be managing some offshore account or something. So,
Yeah, well, anyway, I guess that pretty much covers it for now. And anything else you want to throw in or wrap it up? All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Go watch other podcasts if you want to catch more, and stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.